Well, there's nothing wrong with slurping in unison. Let's do it together. Wait a second. Ready? I almost choked.
I did too.
So maybe unison slurping.
I think I just blew like pathogens everywhere.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna cry.
You know your pathogens are all they're
Mutated.
sanctified.
That's true. Sanctified and mutated.
Yeah,
That's cute.
So we are we're on the long stretch of holiday seasons, and I did something in the middle of the night. I was woken up at 4:14 a.m. There's
the mascot.
There is Abigail the cat just walked by in her
Christmas vest.
Her Christmas vest that our PA insists on dressing her every day, and the poor cat doesn't grin, but she bears it. Abigail is a good
metaphor for life.
Yeah, she is. She moves onward no matter.
Even if she has to slouch a little.
Even if she has to kind of hang her head low and hope that the Instagram post doesn't go viral.
Touche.
But anyway, so I woke up at 4:14. It had been a long night because the alarm went off in my house. It was just a fire sensor having problems. It wasn't enough to obviously call my gracious fire department, who knows me well. But it was enough to wake me up. And oddly, it didn't wake up the dog. Usually it does because it disturbs her. And so I get up and punch some numbers in, and I can't sleep. I'm thinking, oh, do I pick up my fiction here? Do I just get up and read my Bible? And then I went, oh, wait, I'm in a book club. I'm going to read part of this book. And then I'm going to go to sleep because it's a nonfiction, but it's really good. It's really good. And so I started reading it, and I was like, I couldn't stop. I could not stop.
You're up till like 3 a.m.
No, I was already up at 4:14. And so it's that, at 4:14, you're like, I could get up and I'm going to crash and burn by 4 o'clock. But I had a busy day before me, and I was like, I need rest, some rest. And I went, okay, rest in bed is still rest. Oh, and by the way, there's a cardinal outside the window.
Aww.
So I picked it up. It's called All It Takes Is a Goal. I know I have the physical book somewhere in my Christmas material that I'm wrapping, but it's by Jon Acuff or Acuff, and it's All It Takes Is a Goal, 3-step plan to ditch regret and tap into your massive potential. Now I read this and I say self-help. Oh, woe is me. It's
another
just
life coaching propaganda.
Another introspective. Like you have to dig for it, dream, cast it.
Have like a bazillion homework sheets.
Yes, and seriously go on the nebulousness of your brain. Like what if I blink? And he takes a totally different approach. And I couldn't wait. So I did end up staying up. I couldn't wait to get to a piece of paper and write it down. But he says, instead of looking into the future of the what is known, not known, because, I know we all, at New Year's, or at least I do, I don't do resolutions as much as I do goals and what I hope to accomplish this year. But that's all good and well, and I will still do it. But he says to look back at the best moments of your life. And so you're like doing this little preview.
Why does Bryan Adams come to mind?
Yeah, it does. Well,
best days of my life.
So I started picking up pen and paper, and I was like, this felt. It was even if you're a non-believer, but if you're a believer, well, even if you're a non-believer, non-believers do believe in being grateful and gratitude. We give gratitude to our Lord God Almighty, who we know the blessings and the thanksgiving comes from. So I just started just taking off and writing, and it was like so exciting, because it wasn't me sitting there thinking, well, in 5 years. No, it was stuff that already.
Yeah.
And I just kept writing and writing. He said his first week he wrote 170. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was just launching. And I had a morning where I could do that because I was up super early. And I got my Bible reading in.
I remember you were super pumped because you sent me an audio memo that same morning that you've been up since 4 and you had this great idea, and I had like a bunch of PDFs sent to my phone.
Yes, because I thought this is a wonderful thing to talk about because it gives such hope. And what I didn't realize is I knew it wasn't the end of the list, but when I just stopped and did other things, I realized that I was deeply grateful. Deeply, deeply grateful.
Versus, I think, so many resolutions, not that there's anything inherently wrong with them, but it's this constant pressure to do more, be more, and you haven't done enough.
Right.
And I think so often we don't reflect on the past and what we've already accomplished, what fires we've walked through, and how we've been refined along the way. It's only looking forward, which can be good in some aspects to want to pursue excellence, better yourself, etc. But I thought this was really interesting. And when you sent me those PDFs and I was reading in the coffee shop, it was oddly therapeutic.
Yes.
Because I expected my brain to have to feel really on.
Right.
Like how you mentioned the self-help stuff where it's, okay, I have to go super deep and my brain has to be super powered on. Yeah. And this is deep, but it was this really slow, almost like visceral feeling process that was strangely relieving.
It was. I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought the best moments of my life, immediately my brain, and we're really getting into the way our brain processes, and very slowly because neither of us are rocket scientists. But by saying the best moments of my life, my brain didn't trigger, the worst moments of my life.
That's so true.
And so all of a sudden, what were the high points? What were the high, honestly, the list it's an ongoing list, which I look forward to. And he does it where he writes 1 or 2 a day now.
That's so healthy.
And you think about it, it's a great way to follow up on your morning quiet time, your Bible reading at night, whatever. What is the best moment? What is it that comes to mind?
When it can be so easy in the chaos or lows of life to feel completely drowned by that.
Right.
And just yesterday I had just this massive anxiety. I was telling you about it last night and I voice memoed you and I said that was so relieving. It was like balm to my soul to go through those questions and to read this author's perspective, like on reflecting versus looking forward.
Right.
And I didn't even realize it as I was writing, but after I finished, I felt like this burden had been lifted from my shoulders in such a different way than I usually feel when I'm reading some sort of self-help, bettering type thing, which I don't really read that often because of the same reasons. It's
pressure.
It is so much pressure and the hustle mentality of you're never doing enough. But it was really therapeutic. I really enjoyed it.
And you know what it felt like? It felt like a spiritual vacay.
Yes.
And that's what I needed. That's what I longed for.
It felt kind of like the exit to the racetrack of thoughts, actually, without
it.
realizing
Does. It does break.
Here's a segue. Here's an exit.
And that's what gratitude does. It gets you off the exit and takes you to the beach portion of your circle that's going on in your brain, and it totally branches you off into a beautiful place. The beautiful memories. But so what I thought as soon as I said this, is that, why don't we get together since it's, 'tis the season to be jolly and thankful. Jon Acuff of It Only Takes a Goal asks a bunch of prompts in the beginning to set us up for this wonderful thing that you do. It's called a Best Moments list. So let's start with your questions.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite questions. What for you feels like time speeds up or slows down?
Time slows down. No, time speeds up when I have an agenda list that is a mile long and it's to do. and I forget what I'm doing it for. Like I'm doing it for somebody else, or I'm doing it for a project, and all I see is the list. And I just feel, and it can be the mundane, it could be the clothes, as you could see, that are exploding out of my room. And I just tend to ignore it. So that it for me, time speeds up because all I could think of is I just want to get past this. It's not it's checking off the box. It's not living in the moment, present with the Lord, walking with Him. It's get her done mode. And what slows down, and it has been proven. Mrs. Jenkins from Essentials and Classical Conversations said, when you try a new thing, that your brain, our brains are so fascinating, but that there are no synapses will, like if it's similar to something, it's the same, or if it's the same thing. But when you try something new, that your brain's going, oh, it flashes up a different part of your brain. That's something new. So I think it is when I'm trying something new. And I mean, obviously this has been the year for new for me. Going to Switzerland, I had an idea for a story, seeing that the setting of these two cities was exactly as I imagined that they should be. But getting to see them, because it's not really fantasy, but it is otherworldly. I get to world build, which I've always wanted to do. So something new, doing something new that is reviving to my soul is what does it for me. Even on my property, and I feel like I've walked every bit of it, every bit of the acres, you can still find something new.
I love that. Yeah. So when you're doing something new, it slows down time for you.
It does. Man. And there's a pause. I think also getting rid of the rectangle in my pocket really slows down time and makes it delightful. And just not being beholden to, okay, was this text coming in? What does this email? What is the news saying? That kind of thing. What do I have to post?
The digital shrine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really think that slows it down when you actually lose your phone and you're going, I'm losing it.
And I'm not going to hear your text coming in and a bazillion people needing you. You can just be present.
Yeah. I think laughter for me really slows down time, because you are doing something so soul enriching that it's glorious.
I love that.
Because, I mean, to really, really, truly laugh, not
pity laughter.
Like when someone texts you and they go, ha ha, you're like.
With a period or no emoji.
I know. And I'm like, yeah, that's, yeah. Or, yeah, he, he.
Har, har.
But when you're actually physically laughing, there's a reason.
I laugh.
I love to laugh.
I love laughing.
And it is so good for your soul. I think it physiologically expands your lungs, but it does something mind, body, spirit.
Our PA just glared in here and smiled, and then it made me laugh listening to you.
She loves to laugh. And when she laughs, I'm not even going to tell you about her laugh, but her laugh is pure joy.
Her snort laugh?
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say that.
Oh, I gave it away. Lily's snort laugh is a mood.
It is actually an incredible lifter.
It really is.
Yeah. So that's mine. What about you?
I love it. I would say time speeds up for me. I wrote down a lot of things. It speeds up when I'm writing and editing photos, oddly. And it's weird because sometimes it feels simultaneous with time. It'll go by so slowly, or I'll feel so focused, but then I'll look and an hour's gone by.
Yeah, but it's like 5. Okay. Let me ask you a question before we go, because I equate speed up with a loss. And slow down means I'm enjoying. So how are you equating speed up?
I equate it, I can see it both ways because I thought of the same thing. But I realize time also speeds up, as in it flies by when I'm doing something I really enjoy.
Yes, this is true.
Sometimes it goes really slow. when I'm running, time slows down. But when I'm doing other things, and oddly things that are really creative, time absolutely flies by, even though I'm super like laser focused. But
I think too, in this, the spirit of it is it flies by, but the enjoyment of it is the thing that slows down.
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
exactly
prolonged.
It. Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would say the same as you, though, when I'm trying something new, or I feel like my 5 main senses are fully engaged and I don't have my phone out. Yeah. Obviously, we both share a mutual love for Europe. Yes. I have a massive crush on Europe. But I think just going by foot, too, and maybe that's why it feels the same for me with running. It's just, I feel like I can mentally decompress. I can just let my thoughts unravel, and I don't feel like I have all these pressing endeavors I have to get to. But it's funny because even traveling, time will do the same thing. It'll go by so slow, but you blink and then a week's gone by. So they're weird. It was hard for me to actually nail down each of these because in my brain they feel so simultaneous.
They do.
But then there are other things where I feel like I'm wasting time, and I'm trying to figure out a memory card or some really tiny tech spec, and an hour goes by and it feels like nothing. But
like nothing happened.
Yeah. But I think when I'm creating, when I'm perceiving beauty, when just my 5 senses feel fully engaged, that's when it slows down and oddly speeds up.
I love that perceiving beauty. That is beautiful.
It's important. Yeah. It's healing.
It is. Yeah. Deeply.
So... Question number 2.
Question number two.
You'll probably have a much better answer for this because you've had much more life experience. And
34 to be exact. I did the calculator today.
34?
I'm 34 years old.
Okay, yes, look at this hot. What's the best?
Oh my God.
What is the best job you've ever had?
I consider all my jobs that I've ever had as great jobs because even though I've hated a lot of them, but they've taught me something, or not even hated, but I just knew I was either bored, I was not where I was supposed to be, but I did them. So the best job I've ever had are the ones that I work hard at, no matter whether you like it or not. Because there's a lot of people, most of us are having to do some sort of work that we're not enjoying. So that is, just diligence. That's the best job I've ever had, and perseverance. I would say the best job, obviously, because this will go into my best moments, was raising my children and being with them. Absolutely, 100%, being a part of their lives. Would I do a million things over as a mom? Yes. But did I capture a million wonderful moments? Yes. So, but I also will say the best, but I just adore working with words, however it works, playing with ideas in my head, stories, ideas, and just looking forward to, my goal of doing 5 books in 5 years.
When you wrote After the Flowers Die, which was published just a tiny bit over a year ago, right? When it was released. Right. Is that something you look back on with fondness, or was that hard for you to write?
It was good hard. And I think that's true of most things. It's good hard. Because, I woke each morning and it is a book that is encouragement for life after loss. So I was thinking, the burden was deep because I was thinking of a lot of loss, but finding the life in it. But the biggest joy in it was just saying, okay, God, which one are we going to do today?
Where do you rank that with best jobs? Would it be like top 10? Would it be top 3?
It would be top 1.
Oh, so After the Flowers Die is number 1.
Well, no, writing books.
Love
writing
it.
Books, absolutely number 1. It's my happy place. It has been since I was in 2nd grade.
When all the life...
And I was self-published. in my
like
little
colored pencils.
No, in my composition,
paper.
my little white and black speckled composition book. I was self-published.
Well, I think it's cool too because with your book that you wrote too, there's so much life you had to experience to even get the content that you did for that. And
that is huge.
The deep aches and pains, but then the beauty that came through for it.
Yeah, and I'll have it's interesting. I'll have people come back and say that really helped me. And one woman, remember when she came to Dylan, I think we mentioned it in another podcast, hate to mention it again, but she said, I'll just open it up and read it, and it helps me. And I was like, fabulous. Oh, yay, God, yay. That's a big yay, God.
Well, also your work, when it's something that helps other people, there's something I think that's really life-giving about that too.
Yeah, I think that's deep down. We want to, obviously tell a story that's engaging, but reach people, just to reach people and connect with them. I think that's why people write.
100%.
And plus just the sheer idea of putting words together and all that. But now tell me yours.
Ooh, I would definitely say photography, and how it all unfolded was so accidental because it came much like how writing is for you, and like you can probably process a lot of pain through that, and just life that you've endured. Photography has been something that I've loved and had this deep passion for almost 13, 14 years. But a couple years ago, I was going through just like a really deeply grievous season. And it was this idea that it brought beauty from pain, because I remember praying and asking God in the circumstances and stuff I was dealing with. I remember the one prayer I asked was if he could somehow bring beauty from the pain, from the chaos, then it would be worth it. And I think with photography, for me, I see others in such this beautiful light. I love seeing people when they forget that you have your lens in front of them, which is why I love lifestyle work, people and their sport, their hobby, their natural habitat and environment, because when they forget that your lens is right there, there is the stuff you just can't replicate when you post somebody. And I think people are so beautiful as they are without having to pose them, put a bunch of accessories and makeup, a sweaty runner or like a ballet dancer's mangled, beaten up, bruised toes, or even just you planting kale in your garden. There's something that springs forth, I think, so much life from that. And when I see that in other people and think, wow, people can be doing this seemingly simplest kind of thing, but it's so interesting and brings the most beautiful images. And obviously I love gushing over people, plastering them on my Instagram and Facebook and showing them how beautiful they are. And I think in that season, when I was having that realization or this divine awakening that photography was helping to bring beauty from the pain I was experiencing, because I remember I was in this headspace at that time where I felt like absolute nothingness and crumbs. I didn't feel beautiful. I felt unloved. I felt discarded. And I thought, wow, if I see this in other people, maybe that same beauty is in me too. Maybe I'm okay as I am. And the idea that people aren't having to do anything or prove anything on the other side of my lens, they're just literally existing, being, and doing, whatever their thing is in front of my lens. So it's oddly metaphorical for me, but also just life-giving. And I think the brain was created to admire and appreciate beauty, and there are even psychological effects to that and how healthy it is for us. So photography has definitely been the most creatively rewarding for me.
Well, I will say, as someone who's been photographed by you, there was one morning, it was all misty out, and I think we had plans to do it in the evening, and it didn't work. Yes. And so you go, Renee, why don't we do it in the morning, or do it this morning? And I'm looking at you going, it's misty, it's wet, I want to have my coffee, I want to open my Bible, I want to do my normal morning. And I just said yes. And so I get there, and for some reason we're barefoot in the dew, and the fog is coming down, and I was as relaxed as I will have ever been in front of a camera, because I trust you. But I think you bring that to even people that you don't know, complete strangers, because I see your work. It seems like you've walked in on a moment of their life where they're sharing a bit of themselves, but they're still connected to whatever's going on, particularly in your bridal and your engagement photos or couple photos. But I was alone. So I was like, okay, how's this going to look? You know, what am I going to do? And, you know, I tend to go to the silly girl moments.
Okay, but you totally killed it in front of the lens.
No, but it was so much fun. But more than that, it was the first time I went, wow, that is me. She sees me, she gets me. And it's not just because we were friends, because you can be friends with somebody and not get the heart of them in a picture. And I don't want to call it picture in a photograph. But you got the heart of me. And I was just blown away. I was just blown away.
That shoot was so fun for me. Like, in return, though, I love that you felt at ease, because I equally want everyone who I photographed to feel connected and see themselves in their best light, you know?
And you do that. You do that.
You killed it in the Mr. Darcy fog.
Yes, well, it was a Mr. Darcy fog. But you inspired me to, like, break out of my comfort zone, do something, and then I don't even know how we ended up barefoot in the dew, but we did.
We did.
Because you walk around in the middle of summer when I say go take a walk with me, and there's briars everywhere, and you're barefoot. I'm like, Anna Gray, how many times I have to tell you you do need shoes? But we were out there, and you just, I don't know, it felt as good a therapy session as I've had.
That makes my soul feel so happy.
And creative.
Yeah.
It was just glorious. Wow. And it wasn't hard. Most of it's like, okay, where do you want me to stand? And you're like, hey, walk towards the tree. I'm walking towards the tree, you know, and walk through this way. And you're just, it's a great way to do it.
You also had some great Lord of the Rings impersonations that morning.
That's something I always like to, you know, I always want to be her, you know.
Same. Everyone wants to be Arwen.
Yes. Everybody does.
If you want me, come and claim me.
Well, the other one too.
Yeah.
I forget what her name is. The queen of the queens.
Oh, yeah, that lady.
Yes, that lady. Kate Blanchett. Yeah.
So this question actually might be, I said the first one was one of my favorites. This one is probably my favorite.
Okay.
But when I see blank, I smile. What makes you smile?
I did write that down. You go first so I can collect my thoughts.
Okay. This one actually took me a while to think about, because a lot of things bring me joy, but I will process that internally. I don't always just laugh or smile. And this was the hardest one for me to answer, because I think, well, a lot of things make me happy. Laughing obviously makes me smile. But what's the one thing, if I could pinpoint it, that will never fail to bring a smile to my face? And the very thing that always will are when people are driving and they're jamming out to their music, having a solo party. I've encountered two people who were so in the zone. There's nobody even with them, but you can hear the music.
Yes.
I remember once this guy pulled up beside me and he was like, yeah, like looking and dancing and like beating his steering wheel. Or I saw this woman like this number.
Right.
And it just makes me really happy, because they don't give a flip in the world. No, they're having so much fun. They're so full of joy. It's like in musicals when people break out in song.
I think what you're saying is when people are being themselves and being joyful.
Yeah, which is how you are. Like, even for our shoot, you know?
That's very sweet. Really but I know what I did one time. You just triggered a memory.
Ooh.
Someone was jamming out in their car, and they were just going to town, and she looked she looked, and she looked over at me, and I just started going with her, and it was like we connected. Yes. It's like you connect with somebody else's joy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Took the words right from my mouth. Yeah. What about you? What makes you smile?
I think it's always, isn't it funny? Well, this is going to sound weird. Weird animals. I wrote
that down too. When cats lose their dignity. Yes. But continue.
Well, I was even thinking, just when I look at like crazy things, the peacocks will come over here every now and then. We hear them all the time, but they'll come over here, and I'll just say, and I don't want to over spiritualize it, but it really is. I'm fascinated, and it makes me smile because I'm like, God, you are the most creative creator there ever was. So that makes me smile. But I love to see when people are connecting. That makes me smile. Like, I don't have to be a part of it. I just see people connecting in a loving, gracious, wonderful way. And it just does my heart so good.
I feel that. Like, human connectedness is so... I think it's so fascinating to just observe, like old people holding hands.
Yes. So I think the connectedness and just seeing people relate, whether they're strangers or particularly when they're strangers. And then, or if they are the older couple holding hands, that does my heart warm. Does my heart warm.
So when you're flipping through your phone, what images inspire you?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. 100%. Besides the beauty of my grandchildren or children. Anything that comes in that way. And seeing them enjoy life or their accomplishments that they're enjoying. No doubt it's sunrises and sunsets. If you go through my
best here.
If you go through my phone, it has pictures of loved ones, and it has, and I call mine pictures because yours are photo. But sometimes I get a really good photograph. I really do. But it's always sunrises and sunsets. Always, always, always.
The sunrises and sunsets here on each patio of choice are pretty epic.
Yeah.
I love in the summertime because you always will go out to watch the sunset.
I do.
Or invite people to watch the sunset with you. And I think that's just very...
And I'm starting to do that even in the cold.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to venture out, in the the tropical is far, far away. And yes.
I love it.
What about you?
Definitely anything 20th century. Thankfully, the algorithm shows mostly old people who have lived to be over 100 years old, black and white photos, and 20th century celebrity portraits, which inspires my photography. But I'm always so really inspired by what I call the era long gone. I love photos that I have on my phone of my great-grandmother.
Yes.
I'll take snaps of those every time I go to my grandparents' house because it's just, I love things that tell a story, just make you pause. So anything black and white, 20th century, Audrey Hepburn / my great-grandmother,
Your inspiration.
Anything film, yeah. But black and white really is
it's
photography.
It's a love language. The photography of it all. Yeah. But it's also the history. And what's really wild is you're connecting back. I think, how many did you count? Was it fifth generation you were connecting back to, or fourth?
For my Parisian cousin?
Yes.
I would think she's my fifth cousin.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then on your grandmother.
Oh.
When you were talking about one of your great-grandmothers, I thought it was your great-grandmother. Or maybe it was a great-great.
I don't know. I've talked about a lot of them and spam my stories with them.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Renee's favorite?
I adored writing my best moments list. Let's see. Obviously, again, it's always the best moments of my life for my children. Absolutely, hands down, the best moments. And I wrote a lot of these to the Lord. I said, it was most definitely when you, Lord, surprised me with a thought or your presence. August 14th, 2001, After being worn down by drinking, I woke that morning, and I heard first thing, "You're done now, Renee. You can stop drinking."
Ooh.
And I had his authority, his power to stop.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. I'm just going through a couple things. As a new Christian, after trying my hardest to be the best Christian, his voice came to me as I was walking past the piano in my mom and dad's old house on Jonesboro Road in Bristol. And I said, and I heard, okay, or I knew, more like, you know how you don't hear, but you know in the DNA of your body, down to your spirit, that the Lord is saying something to you that you need to pay attention to, and that is going to change your life. And it's not an audible voice. It's just that deep, 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 still, small voice. And it said, it was the most relieving. And this had to be, oh my goodness. It was early in my walk when I was a Christian. So it was the early 2000s. And I have to use my glasses.
You rock the camo glasses.
My
it goes with the green shirt.
caddis glasses, yes. Okay, so I knew, let's see, none of the saving and sanctifying was up to my hard efforts. He was saying to me, like, this is 100% mine. I did this for you, and I'm doing this for you. And by doing that, I'm sanctifying you. It's not a work. It's not an effort. It's not a box I check. It's not even following faithfully my quiet time, or, it's obviously following his word. It's obeying, but even in the disobedience, like, he is doing it, and it's not up to me. I mean, there are things that I want to do to honor him, but he is doing this work in each of us, and it's not a work. It's a work on his part, not mine. And it was so relieving. It was like yesterday in the field. It was like a weight that just lifted off me. And I can't tell you how it changed my DNA. And it also changed my walk with the Lord, because maybe I was on the route to being legalistic or, works-based. Who knows? But it was it was a gift.
It's interesting, the theme of yours that I notice is some of the best moments are when you're fully surrendered.
Yes. Oh,
that's so beautiful.
Oh man, the category.
Even the 01 of putting the bottle down for good.
I need my pencil to write in. Surrender is my category.
Yeah.
I guess
I just found that interesting. When suddenly the human control is off, and it's just allowing God to prune you and have his way, and you just follow.
Thank you, Dr. Anna Grace Smith. That was really good and insightful. That is the beauty. That is the beauty of bouncing life moments off with each other, is that you're seeing something different. I'm thinking it is his presence, but it is his presence. But by getting his presence, it's usually a surrender.
Well, I think it's really cool that you have those specific moments. Same with the 01, forging of the bottle.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time it's easy to look at things just on, okay, what have I accomplished versus what are really hard, the thorn in your flesh that has been plucked out and how you've been healed, or a habit you've broken. Yeah. Because I think, everyone has a downfall or a struggle, but it can be easy to overlook those and not equate them in the same category as, doing things or going places, things of that nature.
And I think what you're pointing to is, we could take this list, the best moments of my life, and say, well, it's got to be about my career. Mm-hmm. It's got to be all about my family. It's got to be all about, a relationship. And it falls under, you really need to let yourself go and just free flow this thing. And I loved what he said in a part of the book. He said, kick the bouncer out of your head. And basically what we say in the writing world, kick the editor out of your head when you're writing your first draft. And he's saying that, kick the bouncer editor out of your head. Don't not write something because it doesn't sound good or whatever. It doesn't have, either, a scripture behind it or whatever. I mean, obviously, we want to dwell on whatever is good, whatever is excellent, whatever is praiseworthy, think upon these things. But here he's saying, just write it down. He and that's the beauty of it. There's freedom just to write it, which is great. Having freedom.
Looks like you filled out.
I did
2 whole pages.
Well, I have another, and I have this category of his presence, but this was another. But to remember something, for me particularly, that was 15 or more years ago. I was sitting on the house that we built in Trinity, and I was sitting there. I love the way God surprises me. That's what I love. That's the best moments in my life, because I'm sitting out there. I guess I hadn't adopted the youngest yet, and I guess the older kids were out doing something or in school or doing whatever. And I'm sitting out there having a very simple, I think I still ate paninis then.
Okay, the panini press is still in commission.
It is probably one of the best moments of our lives because it feeds us quite well.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But I'm just not thinking of anything. I'm just looking at the dogwoods beginning to blossom. I don't have spiritual moment stamped on this. I don't have a Kindle or a book in front of me. I'm just eating and looking outside, and I didn't plan it. I didn't have a phone, had no technology, no distraction. And I'm just sitting out there thinking, okay, I'm just going to grab some lunch and just take a quick lunch outside because it was so beautiful. How all the trees surrounded the gazebo. And all of a sudden, in the mundane, and this is how the Lord usually gets a hold of me, in the mundane, just eating a sandwich, all of a sudden I knew he was sitting with me. I just knew that I knew I was not alone. He was having lunch with me, and I was just filled with this glorious moment of his presence, and which is such a hint of heaven on earth, and it just, we're talking, it was 18 years ago, and I remember it just like it was yesterday or even today, and it just comes out of nowhere. And that's where I love it when the Lord just swoops in out of nowhere and says, I'm here.
And when you least expect it to, because sometimes I think we often think we're going to feel his presence or experience him one way, and then sometimes even in those moments that feel really simplistic or mundane, it's that
true worship.
Yeah.
It's true worship because, again, it's one of those things that I'm not trying to conjure up emotion to lift my hands up and,
listen to my Spotify playlist really quick.
Yeah. So it really is a beautiful thing. He's very, very surprising, and I love that. I love that about him. So your turn.
Oh, this was actually really good for me to hear from yours first, because when I initially was answering this question, I was going based off of like accomplishments. But interestingly, and hearing what you shared, it would trigger some certain things in my brain. I would say the best moments of my life are any time I press into fear, things that I know I need to do, but my innermost being wants to go into self-sabotage mode. I want to run from it. But a few of those that didn't necessarily have the fruit I was looking for even would be both moving to and breaking up with Los Angeles. Yeah. Because I fought my way out there and then I had to fight my way back out again.
Hugely.
And so I would say pressing into fear and resisting pride and expectations, because I tend to live, and this is something I've had to be really cautious with in the last few years and start to kind of put to rest, but I can tend to live through these really high expectations and pursue things assuming that expectation is going to come true, even when it's clear I need to end something, whether it's a career, hobby, person, etc. But I would say best moments are when I pressed into fear. So moving to and from Los Angeles this year, probably running my marathon. And I would say that it's not so much about the thing as it is overcoming your flesh in the process. Because there are a few things in my life that I've had really, really, really terrible experiences with. And that would be marathons, relationships, and interestingly, travels going very wrong. Right. So,
and you've had a number of those.
Yes, and this year in particular has felt like this year of redemption towards those. It's as if God has been showing me that my life is not the mental formula. I tend to view as this like self-fulfilled prophecy. Right. So this year I ran a marathon, and there was this moment I remember sitting in my car just a few days prior. I had worked so hard all summer for months building up for it, clocking in all the long runs. And I just had so many pent up emotions because the last time I had run, I was going through like immense relational distress, had nursed a stomach ulcer. My life was falling apart in Los Angeles. So I was equating all these things with the marathon, even though I very much knew it wasn't just pounding out a unit of measurement that was the big thing. Like, yes, it's scary, but it's like this like visceral gut wrenching response I was feeling in my physical body. And I remember I was like thinking about just canceling it, quitting it, because I'm thinking I shouldn't do this for my mental health. I can't do this. But I pressed through and I did it. And yes, it was hard. No, I didn't have any guarantees with it, but there was this super fulfilling joy of crossing that finish and seeing everybody and thinking, whoa, I did that. And I can remember seeing the 26-mile marker, and I almost, I may have said a choice word out of giddiness and happiness, because the last marathon I ran, I actually had to quit close to mile 20 because I was having this awful like GI distress and some things going very, very wrong. And I had this fear of what if I can't complete it? And I use the marathon as an example because that's how I think of so many things in my life. It's this really deep, scary feeling of what if I just cower into fear and I don't finish what I've worked so hard for. And my gosh, best moments, going to Europe in June. And not that it was just this fun little travel, and I got to eat my weight in croissants and
dance my
Argentina tango. Yeah. But the last time I had done a big travel too was going to Russia when everything went wrong. It was during COVID. My flights were rebooked 3 times. I was actually banned from my first flight. You know, it was all of these things that went so very wrong with getting there. And so I very much equated chaos with even the leisure of travel and just fear, paranoia, almost assuming with these different things that would otherwise be so life-giving to me is this mental idea that, okay, something's going to go wrong. I have to brace myself. I have to prepare for the worst, but still following through and doing those things, because what if there's actually goodness to be found? And what if everything goes to catastrophe, but what if it also is really good?
Goes to good.
Because I think that I tend to brace myself for the worst case scenario and almost create this awful pain and anxiety before I even experience it. So that might be a weird answer to best moments of my life, but it's more like the why behind it, like traveling to Europe, to Russia even, and, you know, the fears I had of going solo and the marathon, and I mean so many different things, moving to Los Angeles and back. Any of those times where I was this close to saying I quit, like middle finger, I'm done. But there's something that is really refining, even if you don't get the romanticized movie-like experience. There's really something refining about even pressing through when it's really hard and things don't go like you anticipate, which is largely how I see my time in Los Angeles. It was definitely not the blissful City of Angels experience in the slightest. You know, few cool moments here and there, mostly chaos, stress, overworking.
Lots of traffic.
Yes. So, yeah, best moments would be pressing into the fear and the million voices that say, no, stop, don't do this. Like, just quit, just sever it, and doing it anyway, and seeing that you make it out alive.
Well, you said the word overcoming. I think that's it. Like, overcoming, you said that, but it's overcoming, not just to overcome, it's overcoming into joy.
That's so,
you know?
Man,
but you said all these words, you know, and so that seems what it is with you, is overcoming and arriving at joy. Because, I mean, at the end of the 26.2, I saw you jumped up, you jumped down, you were ecstatic.
And it's a good feeling.
It is.
And that's how I view life, you know? Life really is like a marathon.
It's very much overcoming into joy, and it's not easy. But it's worth it.
Yes, it is.
You said something that it's not you had written down accomplishments. There's nothing wrong with that, because that is your best moments of your life.
That's true.
I think it's broad, and he does tackle that in chapter 3. All it takes is what did I say? It's Jon Acuff. Acuff. Jon.
Johnny Appleseed.
No, Johnny Appleseed. But he is planting seeds.
Oh,
he is planting seeds.
Spiritual fruit.
But when I was coming down on the farm after I'd bought it, I was like, all of a sudden I went, this is crazy, because I don't normally, I have started naming my car, or something like that. Some people have named them all their lives, and I just went, okay, I'm going to name this after somebody, because they suggested I got a new car because I needed to travel over mountains. My brother in heart said, Renee, buy a better driving card for the mountains when you come see me, and your sister. And that was very sweet. So I was driving down the long driveway to the farm, and all of a sudden I just asked this question. I was like, what should I name this? And I won't mention the name here, but I'll mention the story. So I'm like, I don't know. And all of a sudden it just floats down to me, and it's the story of Emmaus Road. I love that story. It's in Luke. And the two men are dejected. They're walking away from, where Christ was crucified. And they were followers and believers. And they're thinking, like, what went wrong here? And they're reviewing all the things that they knew. And how could he end up dying? Because, and then all of a sudden in pops this man beside them. And it turns out in the long story, he reveals himself to be Christ, the resurrected Christ, and their minds are blown. And so again, I go back to the surprise of God, because that story alone is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, where we're walking away, we're thinking, what? And this goes along with the overcoming, I think. When we think everything is going wrong, Christ is still showing up. He's still Emmanuel, and he's still surprising us. So that goes on, and I know that's redundant of what I said, but I just remember coming down this road to the farm and going, sighing and going, home. This is home on earth, And then the other thing I realized, I went to the Redeeming Your Time retreat. And this is talking about my giftedness, so it sounds like I'm bragging, and it isn't. I was deeply, just kind of like, when we went to Ignite, we're like, where do we belong here?
I feel like a mutt among golden retrievers.
And we felt the same way at the National Religious Broadcasters, like, what are we doing here?
Which we will be at again in 2024
in Nashville in February.
Yay.
And we're like, what? We're fish out of water. We're like, just little us, or we're here podcasting. Well, but this was, I'm at this, and all these people have these designations. So when everybody stands up, well, I'm a da 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 da, and I'm a da 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 da, and I stand up and I'm going, yeah. I'm Renee. I'm just a girl.
That's how I feel.
And and then you always go into, well, I've written some books, I'm an author, but then you go into some more things, but it was I felt so insignificant. I felt so out of place because I had I wasn't reading any spreadsheets at this time. I wasn't looking at a P&L statement. There was no business about me except for I know I need to work on my time management in a God-given way. So that's why I'm at this retreat. And so I'm thinking I'm a loser, and everybody else has it going. They all have titles, but oddly, everybody's Christian.
Everyone has a label.
Yeah, so even in Christian groups, you can feel like a loser.
I feel like, that though. Yeah, I resonate.
So so all of a sudden, I get up the next morning and I'm going, and I'm dealing with a relative who's having a medical emergency. I'm dealing with two people like that, and so I'm waking up. I feel particularly burdened about that, just like wanting to break apart on that. But then at the same time, so you're already vulnerable, and then you're like, I have nothing to bring to the table, absolutely nothing here, nothing. So I go down to breakfast. I go to breakfast, and dear sweet Ember at this hotel, she was just precious. And I asked her, so what's good? So she gave me a Kia bowl. And I'm eating down, having my breakfast and coffee, and reading my word. And still feeling like a loser. But Ember and I start talking.
Even with the oatmeal.
Yeah, I just love it. But I'm talking to Ember, and we're, connecting. And then it was like this moment in time where I was just pulled back a little bit and saying, wow, that felt really good to get out of myself. What if I just make this about whatever God wants this to be, about seeing what other people are doing, and it wasn't giving up on myself, but seeing what other people are doing this conference a little differently, and seeing what is going on in other people's lives, and also at the same time, trying to figure out me and my time management. So I went in, and all of a sudden it was like the door unlocked. I mean, the Lord unlocked this huge door. And people would be talking to me, and they would be saying, yeah, I always wanted to do this. I wanted to work with foster kids. And I'm like, well, and he's running a company. And I'm like, well, you just told me about your employees who are deeply in need of mentorship. I said, you are. It just doesn't look like what you're doing. You didn't adopt them into your home. They're grown men. You're mentoring them. And then I started seeing all these connections. And I've been told, and I've taken tests, I have the gift of encouragement, which I've been working on because you can really slip into flattery very easily, simply. And it sounds arrogant to say that we have a gift of this anytime. But I was like, okay, I just all of a sudden at the end of that conference, I realized the Lord had stepped in. The Lord had used me to encourage others. And I was just blown up. I was like, oh, wow. This was rich, because not only was and then at the end of it, someone else encouraged me. And I'm going, like, the encouragement was deep. And it was incredible. And you get to see full circle some things. So I think that was one of the best moments in my life, to see that the Lord, it's not up to me. It's not a work. It was him. It was his doing. Only he could turn, this black hole of a mess, loser, into something that walks away and says, that was so redeeming my time for the glory of God and for others.
I would echo you in saying encouragement is your gift. And I don't think it sounds arrogant either, but I think it's so fascinating how at these networking events, and like you said, like NRB, Spark Media Conference, with all these like wonderful people, but so many labels where you feel like if I don't have a label or a thing or my one thing, then I'm completely out of place. Right. But it's so impactful when I think people realize that who they are truly on the inside, as cliche as it sounds, like that really is what matters, like the connectedness to people.
Right.
Because there was a woman at the Spark Media Conference who said, oh, I usually don't sit down with people for breakfast, because you pursued her. Our dear friend.
Oh, Charla.
Yeah.
Too.
But I walked out and you guys were having breakfast. I remember her just mentioning something that she was just like savoring that time, you know? So I think that it's also fascinating that you have a best moment of your life as what God's like reminding you of who you are. Yeah. If that makes sense. So I don't think it sounds arrogant.
It is really
it's how he's wired you up.
Well, but and to point, like us going on adventures together, we're always learning something. But we actually connected with the woman who created our bumper music that we kept working on back and forth.
Kezia Alford, we love you.
Oh, adore her. And that whole process of just listening to it and it getting there, and the way she came up with exactly what we wanted, which is even better. So you're going to have to listen to more bumper music. It was just a blessing. So tell me, wrap up one of a best moment.
You wrapped it so well though.
No, you got some more best moments. I know you do.
Passing a very important board exam that you cried 3 times during and got lost on the way to.
Oh, wow.
When I was told that I passed it, I sat down the hall and started ugly crying. And I'm not a happy crier, especially in public. But I was very convinced that I had failed. And I had prepared so hard, gone over the anatomy, the kines, everything. And I knew that I knew during that test that I failed it, that I failed my board. And I walked out. And the man said, he said, why were you so frazzled were you frazzled when you came in here? And I said, yes. And he was asking me questions, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to try to console me and tell me I failed. And I said, well, I don't know why, because you passed. And I was like, ah! And I was and like weeping. It was like I just gotten the golden ticket to American Idol.
Yeah.
Willy
Wonka's chocolate factory.
Crying so hard. Yeah. And I think getting the role of Wendy in Peter Pan, because I used to be
so good in that.
I forget you came to see
it was my favorite. That and Godspeed was my favorite.
It was so
Godspeed.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, that one was important because I had done a lot of shows where I was just in the ensemble, but I remember it was actually my dad who gave me a really swift kick in the tush, like a year or two prior, that maybe I should invest more into even my auditions and try to go for a larger role. But it was a good kind of pressure. And so I started taking vocal lessons, would rehearse my tush off. Like, I would get very... I think maybe my obsessive traits could come out maybe for the better in preparing for an audition, because I would work endlessly, look at myself in the mirror, and go over absolutely everything and try to make it as convincing as possible. But I'd never been lead in a show. I've been a supporting character. I've been ensemble for a bunch. But I thought, I'm going to go for one of the leads. And so I spent about 2 months preparing really religiously. Would drive my crappy little Nissan at age 17 for my vocal lessons. And I remember the moment my friend said, Anna Gray, refresh the cast list. We were screaming on FaceTime because we each got the role that we wanted, because it never worked out ever in the past that, you know, you go for a role and maybe one person would get it, you wouldn't. One would be bumped to the ensemble, you weren't. And so we got the exact roles we wanted. And something about that, because I had convinced myself for so many years that I wasn't cut to sing or get to those high notes like other people. I was always mezzo soprano. This role was soprano, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I can humanly train my voice to reach these numbers and these harmonies. And there was something about going from a 5-year-old who would cling to her mother's leg. I wouldn't even go up. I remember this. I wouldn't go up in this pizza place to go get dessert by myself unless I was just like,
I remember
clingy,
those
I was shy.
Since I've known you since you're 2.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
So, and I would definitely, I was really, really reserved about anything that would be theatrical, acting, singing, dancing. And there was just something really fulfilling about that and performing it, because there was no fear in the actual performance. Like actually being on stage was never something that scared me. It was always, oddly, the rehearsals. Because I think it's the refining aspect. Like, it's not going to be perfect. So I felt really, like, exposed. And the auditions that would always make me so cripplingly anxious. But
this is like a theme. It's like the getting there is the thing that gives you angst.
Yes.
The going there is not what does it.
That's it. And I think what I realize is, and I think for a lot of people operate this way, is you can create a story around yourself and around what other people think about you that's not necessarily true. But you rehearse that story in your head to where you begin to believe it, convince yourself of it, until you start to ask, but what if I actually can do this? Like, if other people can do it, I have the same human capacity. So, you know, I think also...
Wait, I want to explain about being in the audience. So I'm in the audience. Your mother, we knew you were there. She had told me. I guess I had Lily and Lisa with me. And we had bought roses to give you. And we're sitting there, and I didn't have the best seats because you know me. I always wait till too late. But I see you. I see you from, it was the middle, kind of the mid row of the midsection. And I'm thinking, I wonder, like, this is bold because I did theater, but I never did singing. And that's a complete different animal altogether. And I mean, I tried one time for singing, and I was banished to the chorus. But to know that you were leading this role and you were singing solos, and then I've never heard you sing before. and I'm thinking, and I'm going, well, what is this going to be like? Because she must be good enough to headline. And at the same time, and then to hear you sing, I was like, this is pure beauty and joy.
Are you serious?
I am
so interesting.
I was like, I think, you know, for us, a little tear is sobbing.
Oh my God.
But like, I think I teared up because I was so proud of you.
You were always,
oh my goodness. Yeah.
You were always, and still are, speak of encouragement, one of the few people truly who I look back on who encouraged me and pushed me, because there was this acting camp you signed me up for with the Shakespeare Festival.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So like, you were equally a part in supporting my pressing into fears.
But you did it.
No, really. And it's funny that I say this because I'm like, oh, I miss doing a production. Like, oh, maybe you should recover it. And
you can hurry if you hurry. You can go do some Christmas carols somewhere. We'll have an impromptu Christmas carol at the house.
We can just go caroling.
Really.
And can I serenade you in my scratchy voice? I haven't exercised in
and our flea-bitten velvet outfits.
Some lukewarm filmy coffee with almond milk.
Merry Christmas in our bells.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. And what I'm excited about is chapter 3, because it talks about after you do this list, you come up with these categories. And yours seems to be experience, which leads you to a deeper place. Mine seems to be relational, which leads me to a deeper place. So I'm excited about that. But what's the moral to this story here, dearie?
So the moral T to our list, to our reflections on the past, is gratitude. Is what we came to. And it was interesting when you told me that a family member of yours who was recovering from a stress heart attack, gratitude wasn't that?
Yeah, it was eating well, excising, and gratitude.
Is it okay
My
that I
brother.
mention that?
Yeah, it's very fun. I wrote a blog about it. But I know those were the three things that you need to do to alleviate stress that she was told that she had to do to, recover fully from the stress heart attack, which was major.
Well, and I think with gratitude, people think of that, and even a gratitude journal, as, all right, do this. It's going to feel good. It's going to fix everything. That's not, I don't think entirely the point behind it. Sometimes I think joy and gratitude, it comes from force feeding yourself life-giving things even when you don't feel it.
Right.
Because yesterday morning, I can assure you, I did not feel like opening my Bible, writing a single word. I started off with a word spill of just my angsty thoughts and then got to it. But once you start doing it and
doing what? Writing,
force feeding yourself things that bring joy, that bring life, even when you don't feel the inspiration.
The best moments of your life.
Yeah, even when exactly, it's just as crucial, and that's coming from my perspective because I don't. It's easier for me to write down things I'm grateful for, or even just contemplate it when I'm feeling good. But when I'm in a low, it's much harder to see beauty in anything.
Yes.
But I think forcing yourself and being really intentional about whether it's thinking it, seeing it, it really does do something.
It changes the tenor of the day. It does. And I noticed there's this favorite line in one of the Psalms. It says, forget not his benefits. It's a 3-line, it's 3 words, so I can always remember it. Forget not his benefits. And I realized when you're doing that, I'm remembering who God is, but I'm also remembering what he's done in my life.
Yes.
Just like, because I'm reading in Acts and all this, and just like what God does there. So I think that is the moral, is remembering and looking back and remembering that he's there with us, like you said, with joy, and he brings gratitude. And so I would like to say, and to more good moments, best moments of our lives.
Here's to 2024.
Cheers. Cheers.